start. It's 6:03 and on the 16th of May. My name is David Boucher, and we'll take roll call.
Cindy McNaught.
Moses Rajan.
Anita.
Grace Rajan.
Layla Johnston.
Melanie Mannheim.
Michael Gray.
Diane Tiago.
Okay. And we're gonna go into selecting our directors right now. So I'd like to
I can start off and
make nominations for the chairman,
okay.
chairperson.
So I'd like to nominate Diane Tiago for chair.
I'd like to second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No faces either. I was like,
Wait a minute, what if I said no thank you?
Nominations for vice chair.
say thank you
I'd
very
like
much.
to nominate David Boucher as vice chair.
And I'd like to second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And secretary, duties of secretary.
I would like to nominate Melanie.
I'd like
I'll
to accept
second
that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So
We're staffed up.
We're staffed up.
We're up. All reorganized.
well,
So, thank you, David.
Yep.
And I will take over as far as the minutes of the meeting. What I'd like to do is just skip or kind of change things just in the order up. And we'll get back to the minutes of the March 21st meeting after. And I'd like to introduce everybody to our guests. And we have Grace Rajan, who was our recipient of our book award. And I thought it would be nice for everybody here, because we kind of keep that under wraps, Grace.
Yeah,
We don't
it was
tell.
a secret.
It was a secret. Very few. It was only me and Layla that knew. So anyways, and probably the secretary at the high school.
Yeah.
And they tried to beat it out of them. And
Not a word. Wow. And so, tell us about yourself, or give us a little information, more information.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, first of all, thank you so much. I mean, I really wasn't expecting it. I was so glad to hear that, especially for the library support with their program. It's really been great. But yeah, so a few years ago, we started a program here that has to do with computer science. And so working with kids in grades 2 to 5, we started with the fundamentals and worked our way up. And we have a great core group of kids during the school year. It's usually been run over the summer, but for this school year, we decided to do it during the year. And we had a great group of kids who've stuck with us through the entire thing and really have been just taking in a lot of information. It's been great. I mean, the growth has been really great. I really wasn't expecting that. So it's been absolutely wonderful. And the support from Miss Jenny and Miss Michelle in the children's department was, fundamental to getting it started. So yeah, that's what we've been doing here. And we've had great, several kids from all over the local area come in. And yeah, it's been a great opportunity. So yeah, I mean, thank you for supporting it and recognizing it. That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
we'd have a hard time surviving without some of the wonderful volunteers that we have. So we absolutely thank you for your dedication.
So you think you're leaning towards library science as you move further or along the line?
Well, she
or
doesn't
you
have to. Don't put pressure
No,
on
okay. No pressure tonight. No. But,
Definitely looking into everything I can get my hands into. 'Cause you
Sure.
never
To be
know
our next
until you
president.
try. Yes. And I grew up in this library, so it's been really great kind of going through the ranks, starting off in like the kindergarten book club and coming up now as a high school student. So it's definitely something, I volunteered in all my school libraries and learned the Dewey Decimal System. It was all something I've been very interested in. So definitely definitely something I'm looking into for sure. Yeah.
But you haven't narrowed it down to.
No, no, not, I mean,
It's too big a world, right?
And it's your
Do I really need to now? You know, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
When you go to college, you take courses in all sorts
Sorts
of
of
things.
things.
It's like,
Yeah.
wow, I
Yeah.
kind of like this, you know?
Yeah.
Or things you never even thought about.
Sure.
And library science could be one that you never thought
Right.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it was
you're
one I
very-
never thought about,
Yeah.
and I never could have picked a better thing to do.
You were very fortunate that your parents felt that a library was very important to the community because it starts with, you know, the parents
Right.
bringing
Oh my
you
gosh,
probably
yes.
to the preschool programs
Yes,
and instilling that knowledge and how important a library is because it starts from you.
Thank you.
It really
Primarily,
does.
like Grace said, Grace coming from the preschool. I mean, she being like a 5-year-old, 4-year-old. We've been bringing her to library.
Wow.
This is our thank you that this is we enjoy the library facility, especially kids section where they primarily goes, and it's a kind of payback time that you get some benefit and why don't you give the society, and this is all purely idea from Grace that why don't we teach some kids important skills in the 21st
Yeah.
century.
Yeah.
So that way we are so glad to have the infrastructures and the ability to do this.
That's nice.
You can't imagine how many times I've had kids come in through the preschool years, even before 2 and 3-year-olds, and then when you watch them, you almost always see them on the honor roll, almost always. So literacy beginning at such an early age is sometimes underrated by parents in their busy schedules. But thank God people take the time and recognize that value, and it pays dividends, as you can see. What a lovely girl. A woman.
Young lady.
Young lady.
Young lady. So you have one more year of high school.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
more year.
yeah. It'll be busy. It'll be over before you know it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't it go
Think
fast?
of it.
Oh my God!
Goes so
I couldn't
fast.
believe how fast it's
Yeah.
it is, and people always say even college years will go fast.
No.
Even for parents because
Absolutely.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
because summer to summer comes so fast. So
I
maybe-
know. You turn around and you're retiring.
If you can. Different thing if you have kids in college.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Then she'll support you, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
We already said that. But we couldn't be more pleased.
Yeah.
Great
No.
selection.
And
Very
I'm so glad you could come and join us
Oh, we are
tonight.
so glad.
You know, I'm really glad that our time fit in with your time and your.
Yeah, honored to be here and see such important piece like that. The knowledge and wisdom and our library facilities. It's a really great. All of our other 2 kids, they love to come and pick up books, read and.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
you're on a good path.
And we started with the chess club
Oh,
for the other 2 kids.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
and we couldn't make it on a regular basis, but we started and they loved it. Yeah,
great.
but we wanted to make sure that from this year onwards, we wanted to make sure that.
The children's department has really tried to have activities for all different interests. As the library has materials on all different interests, you can cull from that and try to offer things that can expand people's lives.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a great place.
It is a great. It is.
Even, you know, I might be a little partial here.
Oh, I don't think so. Not hardly.
Yeah. So again, I thank you so much for coming in. Does anybody else have any comments or questions or anything for Grace or her parents?
No, but again, we just want to reiterate,
Yes.
thank you very much for your volunteer efforts, for thinking of the library to have the book discussion, for the UNICEF Club, for always being a very active member. like Cindy said, we could not make it without our volunteers. So again, thank
Yeah.
you
Thank
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks to all of
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, we'll be following you.
Yes.
You'll always see me around here, walking around.
Snapshot.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
something. We'll
Okay.
definitely be
Keep
around,
us-
but
Thank
Keep
you.
us posted.
Thank you.
Best of
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we have it next week.
Thank you.
Can you get out? Wait, let me get out and then you can out.
Do this,
Once you get in here, it's hard to get out. That's just,
We really are.
it's only one way.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
All right. Nice meeting you all.
I know.
All right. I'm not closing the door, but I'm just going
Yeah, keep
to,
it
so,
noise.
so. I want people to think it's not an open meeting, but sometimes at the circulation desk, it gets a little noisy.
That's a busy place.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, I'm gonna go back to our agenda and start with the next item, which is the meeting minutes. And I hope everybody had an opportunity to read them. If you saw anything that needs to be edited, corrected, please bring it to our attention now.
Good. I'd like to make a motion at this time to accept the meeting minutes for March 21st, 2018.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Didn't look like it, but
You never know.
I know.
What's her name?
All right, now let's move on to the director's report. We'll start with Layla, your narrative.
Sure. This is something that I think the board might be interested in that did not make it into my report. It was delivered to us today at town department head meeting. It's come up that some board members might want or need a refresher on the laws regarding the Open Meetings Act, ethics training. And so it just so happens that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is having a free workshop. And all members of public boards are encouraged to attend if it's possible. The topics uncovered will be public records law, open meeting law, tools for effective oversight, detecting fraud, waste, and abuse, fiduciary duties and responsibilities, and executives' employment contracts. So some things pertain to us, but some things may not. Anyway, the date and time is May 21st. It's Monday from 10 to 1, and that's at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, which is on Congress Street in downtown Springfield. So after our meeting tomorrow, I'll send everybody the link.
Okay.
Just in case they are able to make it and would like to. So moving into my actual report, as we've discussed a couple of times, there were several incidents of vehicles driving onto the sidewalk ramp over the winter months. And in order to prevent further sidewalk damage and possible damage to the library building by accidental collision, which happened at a previous library I was the manager.
Oh, gee.
A car drove into the building, luckily no one was injured. We installed planters, and so you see the Department of Public Works ordered the nice big round planters that are exactly the same as the ones in the Rotary. The East Long Meadow Garden Club has agreed to fill those when they switch out the other planters with summer appropriate plants. So thank you to them for helping with that project. Also under building maintenance, the town electrician is going to start replacing the lights over the circulation desk and the giving wall. The lights currently in place are no longer manufactured, and it is proving difficult to find replacement parts. Light fixture replacement will begin in a few weeks. We received the second half of our state aid to public libraries payment. You will see the updated amount noted in your financial report. I also included one condensed sheet in your packets of further resources if you're interested in the discussion on overdue fines, and we'll continue with that as old business. As part of that, I noticed that we did not have a comprehensive borrowers policy. We kind of have one piece here and one piece there. And so thought that this would be a good time for the board to discuss a comprehensive policy. We can review fines as part of that and anything else we might want to look at. So that's why you have that very thorough example from the Lincoln Library in Springfield, as well as a draft of a policy for East Longmeadow. And I want to compliment the Children's Department. They did a thorough cleaning and reorganization. You'll have to stop in, Cindy.
I did.
Of the resource room,
And
the
the-
activity room, and the storage
That
closet.
Whoa.
They came in on a day that we were closed
On a Sunday.
and worked very hard. It is a huge improvement. I would recommend
Huge.
everybody stop by if they have time. I really want to thank them for really tackling
it was
that.
really nice.
It is. It's a big improvement. And I have a correction to my report under upcoming events. The summer reading kickoff event will be held in the west parking lot on Thursday, June 21st from 5 to 7 p.m. I have an incorrect starting time of 4. It doesn't start until 5. 4 is when we need to set up. If not earlier. This year's statewide theme is Libraries Rock. We will have a live performer, light refreshments, and various craft and literacy themed activities for patrons of all ages to enjoy. We are really looking forward to that.
It's always a big hit.
And my financial report is next. And you can see that we are on track with where we should be at this point in the fiscal year. No surprises. State aid has the updated amount in there. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, but should be pretty straightforward. Yes?
When does the fiscal year start?
We are on a July 1 to June 30. So July 1 will start fiscal 19.
Any questions or? No? Okay. Can I have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to accept the director's report with the amendments that Leila has mentioned.
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. New business, borrowers policy. Okay.
So, as I briefly touched on in my report, this example of a circulation services policy, I know it was kind of overkill,
Yeah,
but it was
18 pages.
quite thorough, and had some sections in there that didn't necessarily apply to us as far as, e-cards, we don't do those here and whatnot. But I thought this was a good model to break it down, to give us somewhere to start. The top section of this, where it says May 2018 down to number 1 library cards, that's all coming straight from CW Mars. So if we did want to make any changes to that section, that's not something that we are able to negotiate at this time. This is by belonging to CW Mars, we adhere to
these rules.
Yes.
Yes. And that $5 and $10 points.
Correct. That's set by
The
the rules
CW Mars, right?
of our consortia.
Not negotiable.
Non-negotiable. And then number 1, library cards. It just gives a brief summary of the practice that we already have in place, which is that any resident of the state of Massachusetts may obtain an East Longmeadow Public Library card. You fill out a form, you show your photo ID with a current address, details the guidelines for children and for out-of-state card holders.
Can I just ask about the out-of-state card holders? How did we arrive at $38 a year?
I don't know. I honestly do not know.
And who set that? Does the
that-
library set that?
That was set by
By
the
the
previous
board.
director
And
under,
board.
yeah, under
Okay.
different guidelines.
Okay.
And so I did look at some neighboring
Towns, yeah.
towns. Longmeadow is at $35.
Oh, okay.
Agawam was, I think, at $25. Westfield was at $25. We were a little bit on the high end, but we have high services.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I mean, why 30, not 40? Or
I don't know.
I know.
I honestly
Multiples of
don't
5
know.
or 10.
Yeah, and
It could
everybody
be
else that I looked at had multiples of 5 or 10.
$39.99.
Yeah. So if that's something that you wanted to review, that we can change. That's not set by CW Mars.
And how many out-of-town registrations do
Honestly,
we have? A lot?
very few.
Okay.
Very few. And the ones that we do have usually qualify
Under
for
one of
the exemption of being either an employee or someone who owns property within the town limits. Maybe 5, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
It just struck me, it's like,
Yeah, it is an
38
interesting number.
did it?
And I think it's only good for one full year.
It is
Right.
right for 1 year.
Mhm.
It's a yearly
So,
assessment.
nice donation.
Yeah.
It's a, yeah.
So yeah, section 2.
But we do have superior services, that's
We
a
do.
fact. Yeah.
That's right. We're $3 more than Longmeadow.
But you get what you pay for.
Loan periods, fees, and limits. And Melanie had asked me about the telescope. As soon as we actually have the telescope added to the collection, I'll update it and add it to this schedule. And I'll add the outdoor games as well. We've got this is another CW Mars limit, the maximum of 50 items checked out at one time and 20 items on hold.
Is the amount of late fees, is that set by CW?
No,
Mars
it
as
is
well?
not.
Because it strikes me also, why are we still charging $1 for a DVD?
And that's the discussion that I'm
That we
hoping
will
that the board would like
have,
to
okay.
continue with, yes. Yeah, no, none of these fees, none of the late fees, the out-of-state borrower fee, none of those are set by CW Mars.
Okay,
We will be discussing possible.
changes to
Yeah.
some of that.
Section 3, it just details that patrons are assuming responsibility for items associated with their account. Section 3 is kind of a procedural section, just letting patrons know how they can access their account. Overdue notices are sent as a courtesy. Of particular point to note, though, would be subletter F under library accounts, and that details that any circulation records fall under Chapter 66, Section 10, which specifically governs libraries. The library itself does not hand over any identifying patron information associated with circulation records without proper court authority or order. And Section 4 are lost materials. This explains to patrons what happens when they have an item that's been overdue for more than 4 weeks, or if they have an item that they have lost and cannot return it to the library. This is, again, something that is not dictated by CW Mars policy, and I'm hoping that the board might want to discuss this here as well. Currently, what we've been doing is issuing a refund. So let's say that Cindy loses a book. She pays for the book to clear her account, and then she finds the book 2 weeks later under her car seat. So
That's where they would put it.
yeah, exactly.
Those grandchildren.
So a lot of libraries don't issue a refund. They figure you paid for the material, you now own the material, you can do whatever you want with it. What we have been doing is, if the patron has their receipt, which they're given a receipt when they pay for it, we'll issue a refund up to 3 months. So,
Find it within 3 months. You get a refund.
If you find it within 3 months, you get a refund. If you find it after that, it's the same as other libraries where
You own it.
you found it, you own it, you've already paid for it and cleared it. My concern with that is
might wanna
sometimes
own
we don't
something.
keep cash on hand in that amount to just refund somebody the cash. We try to keep as minimal cash here and make
Right.
weekly deposits to the town.
Right.
The other concern is that why is 3 months the cutoff? It seems kind of arbitrary.
Isn't it possible that you'd want it back?
Not usually, no.
Because you probably would have replaced it by then.
Yeah, we would have ordered a
Or-
replacement copy.
Or it might not be in great condition.
Right.
Oh, but you never know. I mean,
Usually, no. And again, this only applies to East Long Meadow items. If Cindy's lost book belonged to Springfield, she would have to contact Springfield and ask, hey, I found this, can I get a refund? And from Springfield, the answer would be, I'm sorry, but no.
are we the only ones that do a refund? That you know?
It's all over the place.
It is.
Yeah, most of the small town libraries do. But it's, like I said, it varies library to library because it's not set by CW Mars.
So if we offered a refund, would it then have to be a check issued by the payroll or the accounting department?
As of right now, we're using cash that we have on hand.
Oh,
And so that would be
That
a
would be
huge
huge.
procedural change
it would. Yeah.
to require them to issue a check through the town.
Yeah, because like you said, we might not have enough cash.
Yeah, and it has happened.
Yeah.
As a new person here, I have lots of questions, but I don't know if I should ask them here or later. But like, how many lost books do we have in a year?
That's something I won't know off the top of my head. I would have to run a report for you.
I mean, do you think it's 10 or 100? You know what I mean? Do you have any grasp on like how many?
No, because that's not, I would need to run a report through Evergreen. And so some months, like the summer months, we're going to have more because we're so much busier. We could have 30 lost books over June, July, and August, and then none
Yeah, in September.
in September.
And what about high demand? Books. It's like if you're supposed to keep it for a week or something, you can renew it. But if there's 4 people waiting for it, does that matter?
Well, that's why we belong to CW Mars, because for those high demand books, you can place a hold. If our copy is checked out, Wilbraham will send over their copy, and so on and so forth. And that really keeps the materials moving along much quicker for patrons. We also have what's known as age protection on ours, so that any purchase that I've made of those, David Baldacci, James Patterson, whatever the latest bestseller would be, is only available for 6 weeks to an East Long Meadow patron. After that, it gets released into the CW Mars Wild, and it starts making its way around the system to various libraries until it returns to its home library.
Which is good for everybody
Yeah.
because you get it quicker.
Yeah,
You
you get it quicker,
right,
and it also
right.
frees up if there
So
is
we don't
something
have to
that's
buy 20 copies or 10
less
copies.
popular, but another library has it. They can send it here, and we don't have to purchase it. We can still meet that need.
Do you have a handle on like how many people have wanted a book that was out? Is there once we had 10 people that wanted this book, or
Oh yeah, we
Oh,
have
yeah.
wait lists
Sometimes
that are
50.
sometimes up to
50.
70
Oh,
people
yeah,
at a time are
70.
waiting.
so people come into the library and they can't get this book. You only have one.
No,
but
you
50
can't.
people want copies of
You
it.
place a
You
hold.
place a hold,
Mhm.
and the hold will go through the whole system. Our copy will be held for 6 weeks.
Yes.
If the
So
demand is high, does CW Mars order more copies?
Well, each library does their own purchasing.
let's say we ordered 3 copies of a high demand, and another library might order 4 copies or 2 copies,
Right.
and it all gets put into the pool. And then when people go fishing for it, you get
Yeah.
you get it quicker because there's more fish in the pool.
Right.
Right?
And then when
I had
it's
to go
not hot
fishing.
anymore, they just sit around.
Well, they're weeded.
They're weeded.
They're removed from the collection, and then
Same issue with your closet.
So-
and that then also ties into the refund situation. Like, do we really want to be giving out refunds for materials that probably aren't going to circulate anymore?
Right.
Right.
Or might
Especially
get
if we've already
weeded.
purchased a replacement.
And usually if it's something that is really going to be popular or that's really liked, we'll try to reorder a copy
Yeah.
as quickly as we can.
Right.
you know, so then we wouldn't want this other copy.
I have a million questions, like, but maybe.
Oh, there's so many
no.
questions in libraries.
Like, is there a weeder person who's like constantly looking at things?
So that's part of our collection development and maintenance policy, which I would advise you to read online because it's kind of long, but
Yeah.
you'll want to read it yourself so you know
Okay.
If
what
you
it
read
says.
some of those policies, I think you'll get a kind of a sense of the behind the scenes of a library.
Yeah, I'm just learning, but.
Of
But yeah,
course.
and so
And they're good questions.
in our situation, like larger libraries do have a team who all they work on are ordering, cataloging, and adding the items to the collection, doing an analysis. You do a report again on how many times an item has circulated. Is it outdated? For example, you don't want to give out outdated medical information. That changes every year. You want to make sure you have up-to-date medical information that you're giving people. So we're going to remove the items from 5 years ago. Everything changes so quickly now.
Even in science.
Yeah,
You know, in
so
the
we make
planets
sure that
where
we don't
there
give
was a
out
planet, now it's not a planet.
That was a dwarf
incorrect
planet.
information. But yeah, so what we do is that's split up. Sometimes one person will read the paperbacks, sometimes somebody else will read the nonfiction. But again, using those reports, using our policy, and using also they'll take into account damage. If the book just looks gross, nobody's going to check it out, and they'll remove it and replace it with something more up to date.
Right.
We only have so much shelf space, and
Yeah.
you want that shelf space to be as efficient as it can be, so that things that are on that shelf, people will really want and will move.
Got it.
There are some things that are on the shelf to help supplement some of the school curriculum and used for school homework, so that might be a more spotty circulation of that type of thing. But in general, the more you can have things on your shelves, limited shelf space, that people will be enticed to take, the better, more efficient your library becomes.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Don't worry, you'll. It's a work in progress.
yeah.
It is. That it is.
But so yeah, this is just a draft. I figure we're gonna go through a couple of iterations of this.
Okay. So if everybody would take it home and
Yeah.
reread it at your leisure and make
And write
any
down any
comments in
questions,
the margins, so
comments,
that when you
right.
come back next time, we can, go over and Layla can guide us along and explain things to us. And, where's this Lincoln Library?
Yeah.
It's in Springfield, Illinois.
Springfield,
Oh, you said
Illinois.
Springfield. I said, I don't remember.
No,
Lincoln Library over there.
Springfield, Illinois.
Okay.
All right. So that's our policy, which was new business. So let's go to the old business, which is somewhat what created all of this to begin with, is the overdue fines situation and how. What do some libraries do? Do they continue having fines? What do they do with late, when books come to them, or materials, I should say, not just books, arrive late after the deadline date? And so, Layla has given us resources as to, removing fines and fees, or perhaps reducing the cost of fines. I look at it, to me, this is two parts.
Right.
The fines,
I do too.
to me, the fines are if something comes in late. The fees part is if you want to use the copier or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then the other issue is doing away with fines entirely.
Yep.
Or doing fines in a different way.
you know, I'd like to share. I make copies for everybody, and you know, if you, I mean, if you, there's a whole bunch of resources listed there, but I just printed this out. This is from the Library Journal. It says the date of this is May 11th, 2018. I thought it might make good reading, one of those nights when you can't get to sleep. And you just gotta know what's happening throughout the United States. And this survey that was taking place back in, I believe they said January of 2017. What was interesting, or a few statistics that I kind of underlined myself, and you'll see. And you can read it, you don't need me. But it said overdue materials, 88% are returned within 1 week of the due date. 88% usually are returned within the week. It said only 3% of libraries reported an average late period exceeding 3 weeks. So it's somewhat...
It reduces.
It is somewhat minuscule, so that's something to take into situation.
And I think that probably would vary from community to community.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Is everything rented, is there a fixed period of time that when you check a book or a DVD out, that
Everything that gets checked out has
to your schedule.
a time.
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that will tell you.
So, the reason I ask is, and I think, you know, it just struck me as odd. I was part of the foreign policy program here. It meets every 2 weeks for 16 weeks, 8 sessions. And I would check out the book that has all the articles you're supposed to read for the session. But I needed to get it back in a week, but I wasn't coming back to the thing for 2 weeks. So it was just sort of, it seemed inefficient or...
Yeah, you should talk to Sharon about that, because she runs that program.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's
should
not
be-
something
Anybody
that,
who checks those out should either have it for 16 weeks or at least for 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
you come back in, you have to check it, but not 1 week.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
something that I
Or that would be in a
the
policy.
consortia described.
I'm just saying.
That's
it
that's
seems
the person
weird.
who was running the program, and that was how Sharon set it up. So, but I think what you're saying makes sense. You would just talk to her about
Absolutely.
it, and I'm sure she would be open to your
Adjusting
suggestions.
Sharon,
Sharon Bellenoit.
On the third page of this, just it kind of gives you a daily fine, an average, a median, and a maximum of the daily fines from those libraries who responded
Yep.
to this questionnaire that was created. So I was looking at how much the average is charged versus how much we charge and so forth. So I do think there are categories that we do need to take a look at and possibly make a few adjustments, so forth. There are, I guess, there's other ways to deal without monetary fines.
Right.
So that's also included in this. There's different types of amnesty programs and so forth. That's included in here is this particular article. Sometimes people do have situations that that change. Sometimes it's overnight, within 24 hours. They lose their job, maybe a death in the family, something like that. Perhaps, you know, we have to be a little more, try to weigh the factors too. You know, people are having a hard time paying their fine off.
There's also, when you start going down that slope, it gets a little slippery because the people at the circulation desk, you know, are given rules to follow.
Absolutely.
And then what happens sometimes is, you know, and they're very good at following the rules.
Right.
And what happens if they're not given empowerment at that point of service, and they'll say, no, I'm sorry, you have this, you know, and a situation entails, and then they go and get either the director or the supervisor or whatever, and they say, oh, we'll forgive that. Well, then it makes that person look like, you know, they'll say, oh, they're so mean at that desk.
Well, that's right.
And actually the people at that desk are what the public sees first. That's who is serving them. That's who they get the impression of the library from.
Sure. And
so I was struck, I went to this seminar conference, and there was a representative from LL Bean there, and they had changed their policy to empower their service people at the desk, and they had such positive results from that, and they had a lot less angst amongst the service people because they didn't feel under attack all the time, you know, and then they're under attack, and then somebody says, oh no, we can forgive that, you know, and it would be on a case-by-case basis, as you said. I mean, you'd have to say, well, what's the circumstances if this person is having financial difficulty, or they have 5 kids and now they can't take any books for these kids.
Well, some of that is addressed, and that's why I'm just bringing it up. Some of that's addressed.
That needs to be addressed, absolutely.
You know, and so forth, because when I was working full-time,
oh yeah, remember those days?
what happens is it's hard being on the front line.
It is.
And
you were.
Sometimes, you know, it does come down to, you do get to know your customers, shall we say, or what have you.
Right.
So what happens is some of that is addressed in this article about, you know, things do happen in people's lives. Well, what are you going to do? Say, you can't borrow that, and so forth. So that's something that was looked at too, so or described in here. So I just thought, if you didn't have the time to go through all the articles, I haven't. I really didn't look at all the others. I just pulled this one up, to be honest with you, and I think it's on your list besides.
It's number 2.
Yeah.
It's this one?
Yeah. This is,
Thanks for making copies.
Yes, thank you.
oh, you're welcome, you're welcome. But I'm sure the others are pretty much on the same.
Yeah, it's examples from all over the country
Yes.
related to the Public Library Association workshop that I discussed at our meeting back in March, that was going to be discussing the overdue fines. These were some of their recommended resources for people who are interested to just get an overview. And since we had so much going on with the borrower's policy, I didn't want to
Yeah.
give everyone a novel to take home and read.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this way
We
you
do
have
have golf, you know.
You have the links, you know, if you're really fired up about this issue, you know, you've got the links here.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm sure we'll continue discussing this over the next few months.
Exactly. But anyways, here's your start. Here's a start.
That's good, Diane.
Love you
Thank
guys. But I just thought, let's get it address it. Is there anything else we should? Does anybody have any other comments about it, or?
Well, I do know a lot of the libraries that are looking at reducing their fines are starting with, particularly in our region, they're reducing their fines for DVDs. They're not completely eliminating them, they're just reducing them down to either 25 cents or 10 cents. Personally, I like it when we treat circulating items as circulating items and would make them 10 cents, with the exception of the telescope. The telescope has a very high replacement cost, and it is a different type of equipment, but I figure why not treat a DVD like a book? And another area that other libraries are looking at is eliminating any fines that are associated with juvenile materials. And so it wouldn't necessarily be tied to a juvenile card, because then you get into issues of age discrimination. And anyone who would check out, let's say that I go to the kids' room and I check out, you know, a couple of board books from there, there would be no fines associated with those materials, not with the card.
Well, it would make sense too, because we already don't do fines for seniors.
Right.
So this would be like doing away with fines for juniors, but putting it on the material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds like a good plan to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, the other thing I was going to ask you about were, would it cause a political kind of problem if we eliminated fines entirely with I mean, because we give our fines, that fine money doesn't stay with us anymore.
Right.
Correct? That fine money now goes to the town.
Yes.
To the general fund. Would they have a problem with losing that revenue?
That's why I think starting small might be a good way to, it's really,
Or have you had any, is it it's not that big a deal of money, is it?
no. But that's why also, before I would approach, you know, the town manager or
Sure.
something,
Right.
she would want me to come with a recommendation from all of you.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a very small amount of money, and particularly for, you know, if we're talking about children who can't get here to return the materials on time, and it's a DVD that's $1 a day, that poor young lady is not gonna be able to check anything out, and it wasn't necessarily anything she could control.
Right.
That's
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think also, in general, fines are at best an unpleasant hassle, both
Mhm.
for the staff who
And-
has to deal with the customers,
Yeah.
and also for the person who does return the materials that they did buy, check out of the library at the same time. So
And I may be wrong, but I feel that a lot of the negativity or disputes revolve around that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You know, I mean, there's certainly some other issues, but that's the big one, I think. I don't know if you found that in your dealings.
Yeah, it's, you know, it can be contentious if somebody claims that they returned
Absolutely.
something, and, you know, then like you said, the staff really want to do the right thing, and sometimes it can be difficult without a clear set of guidelines. What is the right thing? Do I enforce the rules strictly for every single person? Do I make a case-by-case judgment, which gets into a real gray area there? Why
Yes,
is
and then are they going to get
one
in trouble?
person's
Like-
qualification more legitimate than another's, and
Right,
so on?
right.
You'll be
Um,
you will be coming out of your office more often.
Right.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Because you know, perhaps, you know, they have to just, you know, name a phone number and the director will get back to you, or we'll discuss it with the director and the director will get back to you. You know, there's some things that, you know,
Time consuming.
yeah.
Is it possible that you could just say, if it's a product, or if it's a document that is in demand, then you want it to, you know, you want to keep tabs on it, you want to give people the idea that, hey, this is something that's hot and we'd like to get back. But if it's something that people haven't checked out for a while, or, you know, then having it come back early and then sit on the shelf doesn't do anybody any good either. So it seems to me, if you look at all these things, you know, if you get rid of all fines, then you're in a way getting rid of the loan period, aren't you, sort of?
Yeah, I think there has to be
Well, but
some
that's why
kind of, I
That's why
think
you
there
have to
needs
adjust, we have to do some creative thinking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying.
Definitely.
To me, it would be like, if we feel that this has some demand beyond the one person that checks it out.
Well, and you wouldn't really be getting rid of the loan period. You might be getting rid of people thinking, well, I don't have to rush with this. But you would still be blocked if it was over a certain amount of time. And you can maybe shorten that amount of time. You know, I mean, there's different ways to approach it, which we don't probably need to get into now without really looking into stuff. But
at some point, we need to have a.
But it would be hard to say,
discussion
well,
on
this
our
book
opinions
is
of what we
hot
should
and
do.
this isn't, because it might be to one person Oh, yeah, that's a great book, and
No,
another
but you
person
know
said-
if people have held, you know, a book or not, you know. to
Well,
some
I've
degree.
had kids say they wanted to keep the book, and then the mothers would say, well, couldn't we just not bring it back for a long time? I said, well, no, because this is a sharing place. And if he wants the book that bad, you need to buy it. But I have had that happen more than once.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a,
There would be a
you have to
maximum
get the
long
message that
period
you
of
really
development.
want this book back, that you are sharing this, without penalizing people to the point where they can't use the library.
Right.
I think there's a balance.
Yeah.
So we have to do our reading on this. I
Yes,
think.
we definitely have to do homework on this and, you know, jot down whatever ideas come to your mind and so we can make it a more welcoming place.
Even more.
Even more.
Even more.
Even more.
That's right, Diane.
Okay. And
Am I up?
Melanie,
Okay, well,
what Friends news?
the Friends of the Library. So we just had our spring basket fundraiser. So that went well. I believe most of the people have picked up their baskets. I think, do we still have 2 left?
We have one left.
One left,
Number
so
eight.
that person,
Number
number
8.
eight.
I told
basket.
Andrea, and Andrea's gonna try to call that person.
Great.
So that person will soon come in and pick up the last basket. So that went very well. We just had the Valley Gives Day. That was on May
Yeah,
1st,
I
and we received well over $500
Yes.
from that.
That's
Which is
awesome.
wonderful.
That's
So that was
awesome.
that. And on June 11th, we'll be having the paperback sale. That will begin on that day here in the library. As you know, the summer outdoor collection has started. That is out in the lobby, so you'll be able to check out some tennis rackets or the King's Court game, which I know you donated. Thank you very much.
King's Court game, what's
King's
that?
Court. It's
Oh, it's fabulous.
it's
Is
a
it?
game kind of like the way I explain that is it's kind of like croquet.
Oh.
It uses croquet materials,
Yeah.
but instead of going through wickets,
King's Court.
basically each side, imagine you take a diamond and you cut it in half.
Yeah.
So you each have a triangle.
Yeah.
And in that triangle, you have 2 guards and a kingpin.
Oh.
Now you have to knock over the 2 guards and then the kingpin to win. Okay? But the interesting thing is if you hit one of the other, and everybody has 3 balls. If you hit one of the other side's balls in their area, or in your area, I'm sorry, you knock it out. So you can win actually by knocking out all the balls of the enemy or by knocking over the 2 guards and the kingpin.
Oh.
It's
So
really
we can't send
different.
anybody.
It's very interesting.
Cool, I gotta look
Yeah.
at that.
Or checked out by the children of the library, they can make up their own rules.
That's
There you
right.
go.
That's right.
And I wrote
That's right.
that on part of your directions, you know, your instruction list. I made copies of that, and it's in
Oh,
the
good.
King's Court bag. And on the very bottom, I said, or you can make up your own rules and have fun.
There you go. That's good.
So that's good.
It would be good to have a backup of rules.
I have them at
Because people
home.
will lose them, probably.
Oh, I'm sure.
So if that ever gets lost, you can let me know, and I'll bring a copy to the library. But I did make a couple of copies. I'm already
Good.
ahead of that game. And the last thing I
She's
wanted
on
to announce to the friends is just June 11th is our next friends meeting, which will be that'll be the end of the year, and then we'll start again up in September. And that's it.
How did the golf tournament do?
That went very well. I didn't have my golf notes with me
Oh, I'm sorry.
or the finances. That's in my other folder.
That's okay. Don't worry.
Let's
I didn't
say,
have
I
that.
can say,
Yeah, go ahead.
do
went
the
well.
bookkeeping. It exceeded last year's.
Yes,
Oh,
it
it
did.
exceeded expectations.
Yeah,
Yes, it did.
And I think it met the goal that was Darcy's.
Oh, Darcy
goal.
had
A
this
little
goal.
bit above Darcy's goal.
Yeah.
And she was so hoping to hit that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was, I'm glad she
so,
did.
so we,
That went well.
they did, definitely.
She did such a good job and worked so hard on it.
Yes.
And we have pictures on the website.
Yes,
Oh, gosh, I
Yeah,
have to
some
look at the
pictures on
website.
the Friends website.
yeah, yeah,
So that's good.
so,
It was well done.
yes. So, if there's no other old business or any other business to come before us, I'm just gonna announce first that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, June 20th, 2018 at 6 p.m. in this room.
Okay.
Okay. And we have some business to also attend to tonight in executive session. And I would appreciate if we have somebody who can make a motion to go into executive session and and it needs to be seconded.
Yep.
We need a roll call vote on this as to whether or not we are going to agree or adopt going into executive session. We don't do executive sessions that often.
No, we don't.
So anyway,
I'll make a motion to go into an executive session.
okay.
And I'll second that motion.
There you go, Michael.
Okay.
And now we need a
so,
roll call?
roll call vote, please.
Aye.
What do we do? We
You
just,
know, all those in favor of going
Aye.
into executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed?
Any opposed?
No.
All right. Well, the board has voted to go into executive session. At this time, we will take a 5-minute recess and we will return to conduct that executive session, in which right after that, we will adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
All right?